morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all attendees across the globe. I hope wherever you all are safe. Let me introduce myself. I am Achu Mariam John, and I am part of the Hac'KP organizing team. Hac'KP is an international virtual hackathon organized by Kerala Police to build promising solutions to face the challenges in future policing. We have started the hackathon on July 17 and it is still going on. There are more than 500 participants forming 100 plus teams across the globe competing to bring out their best solutions. The award will be declared at 10 a.m. on 15th of August 2020. We are happy to introduce to you our partners who are the strong pillars of Hac'KP. We have Paytm and SBI as prime partners, Beagle Security as a technology partner, Cloud4C as the cloud partner, EC Council as the knowledge partner, and OWASP Kerala as our community partner. I take this opportunity to thank you for your support in organizing Hac'KP. Now, we can have a look on a video on Hac'KP. Welcome back. Hac'KP is organizing a webinar series on various technical topics which might be useful for the cyber community. Since more and more companies are working from remote, ensuring the security of infrastructure and applications is a critical requirement of the present. And what if we can achieve that goal through open source tools? Today, we will be having our third webinar, how to run an Appsec program with open source tools, taking this particular issue into consideration. With immense pleasure, let me introduce today's speaker, Ms. Vandana Verma. Ms. Verma is a seasoned security professional with over a decade worth of experience ranging from application security to infrastructure and now dealing with DevSecOps. She is a part of Global Board of Directors of OWASP Foundation. She's a speaker in various national and international conferences and works with various communities like InfoSec Girls, OWASP, NULL, etc. Her passion is to increase female participation in InfoSec space. Now, before I hand over, I would like to let you all know that you can drop your queries in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube channels. Ms. Verma will respond to your queries at the end of the session. Now, let us all hear from Ms. Vandana Verma.
Thank you so much, Achu, for the kind introduction. So without further delay, let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Is it visible to you? I assume yes then. So hi everyone, thanks for joining this session. Today we are going to talk about running an Appsec program with open source project, or how to build the Appsec career with open source project, because we know that we are all heading towards modernization of applications. We are all talking about that we need latest APIs, microservices and everything. But we still see that the companies are being impacted with the most common vulnerabilities which are there in the applications, like SQL injection, sensitive data exposure, or security misconfiguration, which we everybody know, like these are all human errors, which we can try and remove them altogether. And when we talk about the industry, there's a big gap in what an industry needs. Like we need all the APIs, microservices, cloud, Kubernetes, and so many more things. And what we really are getting, There are a lot of people who understand the whole process, understand the whole technology flow, but still there's something which is still lacking. There's still a gap. Organization wants to set up an Appsec program, especially from scratch, keeping everything in mind and not even leaving a small space behind so that the company might be part of any of the breaches. Similarly, when I talk about students want to be part of information security area because this is like a booming area. People talk about bug bounty, people talk about so many things. But there are still pointers where sometimes we tend to miss on those things, the basics of it, the projects that can help starting the basics. So we need a program, or we need something, a tool, a project, or a place, a document which can help us guide through the whole process, which we can pick up and get started with the whole application security pipeline, application security program perspective. And at the same time, who can help us is OWASP has a good number of projects which can actually tie together. We can tie them together into the whole application security lifecycle, application development pipeline structure, and we can understand, okay, this project can work on that. Now, why I'm talking about a OWASP project, because we know that there are so many projects which OWASP has. But there are some people who know that these projects exist. There are people who don't know that these projects exist. So this talk is for people who don't know that these projects exist. And secondly, those people who know that there are projects, but they don't know how they work or they function. So this talk is specifically for that. So I couldn't get the demo for all the tools, but I have got the screenshot for all of them because it's practically not possible to get them all in just 1 hour or in 45 minutes. So I thought, okay, how about taking some screenshots from them and then give you reference. Okay, this is where you can go and check about this project and get to know about it. So with this talk, I'm going to be sharing a framework, and that framework will tie all of those projects together in different portions, in different parts, which I feel is important as an application security person, that we should be knowing as an organization. If we are setting an application security program, we should be using, or we can try and use it in our organization as an open source project before actually buying a commercial tool. So most of the things Achu has talked about, so I'm not going to go over my bio. I'm going to leave it over here. I am going to directly jump into the talk. So this is the basic framework that I was talking about. And when I was saying a framework, you might be thinking that this is the actual framework we have been following for ages. Like, we are talking about requirements gathering, threat modeling, source code review, vulnerability testing, software composition analysis, and what not. But with this talk, we'll get an understanding that how all of this can be done with the open source tools, and knowing about our own systems, how we can take it further, and then how we can start contributing to each of these things. Because it's very important to understand the core, and then if it interests us a lot, we should start contributing to it or be part of it, because then we can actually enhance our knowledge and enhance our contribution towards it. So let me talk about requirements gathering and why I started like building this framework. So when we say requirement gathering, that's the first thing that we need to effectively use it. Because when we are setting up a program, or even when we are developing a new feature, we need to have the requirements gather first. If we don't have the right requirements, how we are going to deliver the project, or how are we going to deliver a feature? How are we going to build an application? Is it practically possible? No, that's practically not at all possible. So we need to have the requirements gathered first, wherein there should be some place where we gather it. It could be a tool, it could be a document, an Excel sheet. I have done the requirements gathering in an Excel sheet myself, which was like a good 7-8 years back. But now the things have changed. Things have grown. And all those manual tasks which we can avoid, we try and avoid, so that we can spend our energy, efforts on the other things that we can try doing it. And when we say requirements gathering, this is one of the most important part, because even though I'm saying that we can document in an Excel sheet, but again, if I miss one of the requirements, I'll have to redo the whole work. I'll have to add so many things again. So why don't I use a project which is like there? So OWASP Security RAT project is an open source project which we can use in requirements gathering. It helps in addressing all those security requirements concerns that we have seen over the ages, that somebody was writing down the requirements and that person missed it, or we were just assuming that this could be this. But this RAT tool actually helps in automating the whole requirements gathering piece. So there are some pointers which are already there as part of the project, which we can pick up and we can start building on top of it. And it is a kind of a project which simplifies the whole automation approach, especially in the requirements gathering phase. And then there is another project called Security Knowledge Framework. Now, this project is something which I feel it's a complete package in itself. It's a knowledge base which contains a lot of things in itself. So, especially when we talk about requirements gathering, there are pointers which comes into our mind which sometimes we miss. So, Security Knowledge Framework has an area which maps all those requirements which are there, which could be there, with the requirements which you might see in the future. And then you can pick and choose that, okay, this is my requirements, this could be the severity. This is my requirements, okay, this is how I need to integrate as part of my application. So then we can use it in our own requirements gathering phase. And this project I'm going to highlight at multiple places, because requirements gathering is just one part or one portion of the work done by Security Knowledge Framework, especially when we are getting kickstarting with the whole process. So now when we have gathered the resources, there's another thing which we have been talking about, not recently, but it's been a while that we have been talking about. I've used tools to do the threat modeling, I've used Excel sheets to do the threat modeling, but then people have started about talking about an automation piece. Why don't we have an automation piece which can help us with the whole threat modeling place? So threat modeling is more of a profiling an application, discovering potential security threats or vulnerabilities in a design and fix them early. Rather than fixing it all the things later on, how about eliminating those vulnerabilities, bugs, even before writing the code? How good that would be, because we have all heard about that that the cost of fixing a bug in the production will cost us 10 times more than the one that we can fix it in the development phase or even before that. So threat modeling helps us with that. So Threat Dragon is one of the project which is an amazing project which can be used at multiple places, and this is the one tool which can actually help us with the threat profiling. And how the threat profiling, it's in a form of a flow chart. It's in a form of integrating that with our own requirements, and it can tell, okay, this is a high severity application. If something happens, this will be the threat, or this can be a threat to our application, and mitigate even before we start doing the development. So it's very important to do the threat profiling and not to miss these things. So Threat Dragon can help us, and it's not always advisable to go for a paid tool. Like I'm a no supporter of all the time paid tools, but I'm not against them. It's just that first analyze what is the requirements, whether that product or a tool can be, or vendor can be useful for our whole pipeline, because we might be using certain set of technologies in our own organization, but then we have purchased another tool, a new tool, and that doesn't support those technologies. How bad that is. So to avoid that, we need to understand our own requirements. And when we say requirements, it's important to have threat model our application or a new functionality per se. So another project is Pythonic project, PyTM project. So this is more of a project on Python. which use elements, properties, and it provides the whole threat model in a flow diagram as shown on the screen. And that whole flow diagram, it's in a form of a sequence. So threats would be shown in a sequence. And the whole repo, GitHub files, all of those things can be actually integrated with it really, really well. Another thing is, so we have done the requirements gathering. That's like, okay, most important thing, we know this is our requirement. Then we know, okay, these are the things that we have threat model. The whole powerful thing of finding the vulnerabilities as early as possible, we've done. Then how about doing a code review? Now, what is this code review? So I'll tell you a funny thing that when I started working in application security phase, and that time code review was not in the trend, or it was there, but then it was not like we have to do it. There was no automation that was going on much, and people were like, okay, let's do vulnerability assessment, and that's all, or do a penetration testing, and that's all about it. And then when there was a roadblocker, security team comes in and find the bugs, tell them, okay, these are high severity bugs, and we have to stop the production. We have to stop the application to go to the production. Oh, that time it was a big problem. And that's when people say that security team have always been seen as a person who's or a team who's like a evil team. But trust me, it was not because of the things they were doing, but it was because the vulnerabilities were found almost at the end. Now, when things are found at the end, what could go wrong? So just to avoid all those things, we started doing all of those things early, please. So that time, security code review came into existence. And now, when we talk about secure code review, what counts in that? We have developed the code. How about finding the bugs in the code? Now, what kind of bugs could be there? Code-related vulnerabilities. There would be some vulnerabilities if we fix in the code, we wouldn't face any challenges in the production. I understand there will be few things which we have to test as part of VA and PT, but then there are a number of things that can be rectified or mitigated at the source code review side as well. So it enables the developer's security team to find and fix those bugs even when we are configuring the things, when we are coding it, especially configuration related bugs. We can assess our application, whether it's built in house, purchased, or even compiled. Because think about it, there's a product that we are working on. There's a bug in the source code. We have compiled it and sold it to a number of people. How bad it is to fix the bug later on. Like, we are telling all those hundreds of people, and we are saying that, oh, we are going to release a patch. How about fixing early? How about when we are writing the code, that time only fix it? Half of the headache would be gone. We would not be dealing with all the consequences which would be there afterwards. So code review actually really, really helps with that. So the first project is code review checklist, which can guide us with a whole code review section, which has an exhaustive list. Okay, this could be wrong in the code. How about looking at this particular parameter in the code, whether we have a validation in place or we are passing it to another application, whether we are validating, or what are the things that could be there. So it's an exhaustive checklist which we can pick up. I remember that it was updated in 2017, which is still not long back. But again, if you feel that there are some things that can be added, or there's some things that can be modified, you can actually go back and help the team updating all those things. And at the end of this talk, I'll explain how you can go back to the project leaders, chapter leaders, how you can actually be contributing to all these projects. So now when we say the whole DevOps pipeline, there's another project that is a code pulse. Especially there's a continuous challenge when we talk about what has been covered as part of the penetration testing or even the code review. We need something to monitor it. So code pulse is one project which can help us in letting know the whole coverage, that okay, as part of that code review, this is the thing that has been covered, these are the portion that have been missed. So it helps in understanding all of that. At the same time, if we talk about penetration testing, we need to understand, okay, what are the things that could be covered as part of the code review or as part of the penetration testing. So it provides a glance through understanding at a glance that what are the parts of an application which have been covered and which we still need to cover. So it provides the real-time coverage, feedback, and makes it easy for us to adjust with the testing activities based on the whole observed coverage. And we all know, as a security tester, as a QA, as a developer, that these are the challenges we've been trying to avoid from like ages. So those things can be avoided. Another thing is, which we say, cheat sheet series. So cheat sheet series is my go-to place. Now why cheat sheet series? Because cheat sheet series is like a one-stop solution for finding the bugs, wherein if you say that there's a vulnerability called XXC, and I don't understand how to fix it, how to find a flaw, how to mitigate that, or so how to find a relevant attack vector. So series is a beautiful, articulated place. I'm going to show it to you that, and you just have to go to cheat sheet series, look at the whole procedure, especially while documenting your own reports. It is amazingly crafted. It will help you in like figuring out things, and then you can actually use the words modified at your convenience, and then start using that. At the same time, how about specific code related checklists like Go Code? So I got introduced to Go Code in 2014-15 time, and that time I was feeling that it's like every year there's something new that is coming up. So how about keeping toes with that? Like, how about getting to know about that specific vulnerabilities related to that particular code? Because even though all the code looks similar, but then the syntax are different. There are sometimes things which are like too different. So how to figure it out? So OWASP has a Go Secure Coding Practice Guide, which is more of a hands-on approach guide, which can help us in finding the bugs in Go Code, and keeping the Go code secure. Now, we have talked about requirements gathering. We have talked about threat modeling. We've modeled our application, and at the same time, we've done the secure code review. Now, once the we've found the bug fixed, I don't think so. Why are we talking about this? We've seen the breach like Equifax, wherein we've seen that the application was using which was not updated. Now there could be n number of things. There was one breach, but then there were n number of other breaches which happened, wherein the open source applications were used, but then they were not even any company. So what can we do? How about doing the software composition analysis early, especially when we say that we have X amount of code on the internet is open source code. Like I know, I was going through one of the research, percent code on the internet is all open source components. Now, when we have so much code, which is all open source, how about making sure that our application out that we are using an open source project? I know that I have worked with developers. I have written some applications myself, so I know that it's a big challenge. And especially if an application code is not working, we tend to download the third party libraries from the internet. And if a developer leaves the organization, what can go wrong? what could be the issue. So the fun fact is that if the person, product owner, leaves the organization and we don't have a documentation around, we will lose the track. And what could be there? We will be vulnerable. Absolutely. So there will be a big concern. That will be like a big challenge. Now, give me 2 minutes. I think my video is not clear. Give me 2 minutes. Okay. I hope my video is clear. All right, I hope my video is clear. Let me share my screen again. All right. So position, wherein we talk about how to find them. It's very, very important to find those vulnerabilities as early as possible. So, Dependency Check, which is a project by OWASP, Open Web Application Security Project, and it is how it helps us is it helps us finding the bugs early. We use the code review tool, this dependency check, run through it via the code that we have. It finds the dependencies which are part of our code. And what all things it finds? It finds what's the product version. Then what's the vendor? What's the actual project? A product. Now, when we know all of this, we can check on the internet that what are the vulnerabilities that could be associated. But why to check the internet? It is integrated or very well integrated with NVD database, wherein we can find the bugs in NVD database. So it just maps with that. For the first time, when you download this tool, run it, it might be a bit, it might take a bit of time because it downloads the whole database. But then in the Delta scan or the new scan, it is quick because I've used in a lot of projects, and this really, really helps. And it actually gives us around 70% of good result. Now, when we have 70 to 80% result, there would be some false positives which we can check, and we can actually fine tune it really well based on our requirement. And when we fine tune it, it becomes even more easy for us to understand our own organization and fix the bugs as early as possible, especially all those related to third party components. And if you know that OWASP top 10 also has one bug which is actually mapped to using components with known vulnerabilities. So this is something quite, we know that there's some component which is in use in our project or in our organization, in our code, and we're still using it. Why to do that? So to avoid that, I would strongly recommend to use dependency check. Now at the same time, there's another project called Dependency Track. Now, it's an intelligent supply chain composition analysis platform that allows organizations to identify and reduce risk, again, from the third party. And it has unique features and highly beneficial approach. So how it helps us? It actually leverage the capabilities of bill of material and then do the software composition analysis. It tracks the applications, libraries, frameworks, operating system, hardware components, and identifies the components with the risk or known vulnerabilities, out of date components, because we all know that out of date components is like a big headache for any organization to manage. So it provides that information. Then modified components, license risks, even not just that, it can be integrated very well in the whole pipeline. Now, once that's integrated with like Maven or any other project or any other tool that is very well can be integrated with the pipeline, it becomes easy for us to use, because we want an open source project which can give us a view. Okay, this is how software composition analysis can happen. And when I'm going out to buy a tool, a vendor based tool, this can help me. I know, okay, this is there in my organization. I want to analyze that how good result can come from a product based tool. So these projects can actually set the stage for it. I wouldn't say that everything can be, we can get it from an open source project, but we can fine tune. We can actually take it as a proof of concept, reference, and then go ahead and buy the tool. Because then by that time we would know our own organization's capacity, appetite, and all of those things. And another thing is that we need a project which can be integrated using the APIs. So there's a very well developed API section. So APIs first design is available. So we can actually leverage that and start using it. And it's again super simple to install, and you can set up, because I know that it's a big headache to run a tool and then set it up. Sometimes it takes days to set up a tool, but with them, with these tools, I don't think so that we have to spend days. Dependency check, I was able to set up the whole thing in 2 hours. Like 2 hours is like a maximum time, saying that I consolidated everything, got this, that, like everything was done in just 2 hours. So that's that quick. Now, when we've done the software composition analysis, how can we miss the vulnerability testing, which we've been doing for ages? And people say that it can be compensated for this, that. No, everything has its own place in the whole pipeline. And automating the whole thing, we do need vulnerability testing. But then how should we go about that? So web security testing guide, this was the first thing that I was introduced to when I was like told, okay, let's go ahead and start doing the application security testing. And as one of my mentor told me, oh, there's a web security testing guide, you should start using it. So I started using it, and I really liked it because it was an exhaustive guide, which is starting with what is an STLC, what are the vulnerabilities, like how should you be doing a vulnerability testing. And a lot of people say that that's somewhere not related to bug hunting. I wouldn't say that it is. Like, we can compare these two things. This is about web security testing, and when we say bug hunting contains like a lot of things. So I have to do a lot of other things as well. So I wouldn't say that that you should only be looking at this or that. No, this can be taken as a reference guide, and then especially for the people who are students who are getting started, it can be a good reference architecture. Because I've been seeing the discussion going on lately about web security testing guide and a lot of other things. But this is like a really amazing project which has helped me sail through, especially in my early days in application security. Now, when I talk about application security testing, there's another project called API security project. Now, if I miss it, that means I'm not covering the whole application security, because application security now involves the whole API section. Most of the organizations have started relying on the APIs. So it becomes even more important to consider this project and understand what are the top vulnerabilities that can be there as part of APIs, and how should we address all those APIs related concerns, and how this project can be helpful for us when we are getting started. So the crucial role that APIs play in an application architecture today, and even the important role would be played in future as well. So even for a simple function, we say that, okay, let's write an API and start working on that. So APIs will stay, but then we'll have to understand, okay, what could go wrong with an API. So this API security projects helps with that and covers the whole application security testing. Now, when we say application security testing, can we miss out mobile security testing? No, we cannot. We all have handheld devices. We all have the devices which help us getting online 24 cross 7. I literally say 24 cross 7 because even sometimes when I wake up in the night, I like, can I check my emails on my phone? Can I do that? Can I do this? Am I missing something? So everything is done on the mobile, and similarly, all the mobile applications, we have to make sure they are secure. So mobile security guide is like a comprehensive manual which helps with the mobile security testing, and it covers the wide range of risk, not just with Android. It covers the risk related to iOS as well. So it helps security testers, developers, the QA people who are working on the mobile application security development, or mobile app development. Now, once that's done, we have found the bugs, uh, we have done the vulnerability testing. How about automating some of the portions? It's going to only ease our job. So now, to ease that job, uh, what exactly can help us? So Zap is one of the open source security scanner, and I've been using it from quite some time now, which is like good 7-8 years I've been using it, and it's one of the amazing projects that I found, which has a good browser based approach. Then it has a good developer friendly UI. It has so many APIs which can be integrated with multiple tools, especially Selenium and many other projects that we can use, and we can make it part of our own security pipeline. Now, when we have something which you can find the bugs early in the application security testing and automate those things, how good that would be. So, OWASP Zap or Z-Attack Proxy helps with that. And this project, you can add your own test cases. Like I have so many test cases created for XSS, for SQL injection, for directory listing, and for so many things. So this project, when we are talking about automation testing, it can also help us with the keeping us on toes with, okay, these are the new things which are coming up. How about we fix all those bugs early in the application security pen testing, or in the vulnerability testing. Now, there's another project which is again an automated testing project, which is AMAS project. It maps the whole network. It works really well with many of the SIM tools, IDSs, IPSs, and finds out what could be there as part of our external environment. Now, it's important to understand our own network base, which is there outside. So this project can be used in the external asset discovery. There have been instances where we've created an external asset and we've just forgotten. So this project actually helps with that, wherein finding the assets and then making sure the vulnerabilities don't exist on them. So gathering that information is like a big thing. Now, we have done the whole thing. We've done the requirements gathering, we've done the threat modeling, we have talked about, okay, we should do source code review, and we cannot miss source code review. Then came software composition analysis. So we can't miss the software composition analysis. At the same time, we can also not miss the vulnerability testing. Now, I am sure when we are doing all of that, there are certain bugs which can also be found, which should be remediated ideally. So, if we don't find those bugs or fix those bugs, what could go wrong? It's like as good as, okay, we have run these checks and we have kept it for a compliance person or a person who's going to come and audit us and saying that we have done this was a requirement and we've done this, but bug fixing, we will do it. This should not be the case. So we cannot do that. So to avoid that, we need to have a bug tracking. do, especially for the people who are who cannot afford to pay for a project which can be used for defect tracking. So what can be there? So Defect Dojo is one project which can be used as a defect tracking project. And with the defect tracking, we also need some graphical things which can provide the information to the leadership that okay, these are the defects which exist in our environment, and these should be fixed as early as possible. These are the high severity vulnerabilities. These are the medium severity vulnerabilities. These are the critical bugs. So I'm sure everybody thinks that okay, these vulnerabilities should be addressed. Especially if there is a template, we can define and we can leverage those templates. Uh, we can leverage those templates as a baseline for running the self-service tools. Now, how about importing the vulnerability reports from the well-known tools like Qualys, Nessus, all of them? Because if we don't import from those tools, it might be troublesome. So we are integrating in the whole pipeline. We are taking reports from the ZAP and other tools, but then Defect Dojo can take reports from Nessus and Qualys as well. It can also has matrix which can define if a vulnerability is a high, critical, or a low severity vulnerability. And the top goal is to reduce the amount of time we as a security professional take in or spend in logging those vulnerabilities or bugs. And Defect Dojo helps just with that, so that we all those things can be avoided. Now I'm going to hold for like 2 minutes because I have given so much of download, and I want to stop for 2 minutes and see if there are any questions, and then we'll start again. All right. So do we have any questions in the chat box?
Okay, so this was an incredible interaction, and yeah, we are now open for question and answer session.
The session is still continued. We are not done with the whole talk, but I always like break after 15-20 minutes. Like still I've gone a little bit long, but it shouldn't be like I'm the only one who's speaking and then everybody fall asleep. So I don't want that. So that's why I've taken a break wherein I can see if there are any questions, especially related to the things we've already talked about. So I can see that there is question on the screen by Harish, that is there any framework for review open source libraries? Yes, there is one. Dependency Check can help really well with the open source library, especially if you have a big project. You can use open source dependency track as well. So you should take a look at it. There are so many vulnerabilities that can be addressed. There are so many languages that are supported by these projects. So you should take a look at it. And I'm going to be sharing this deck shortly so that you can just use it anywhere you want to use it.
Okay, so there is another question from Mr. Akshay KS. He's asking,
Yeah.
Give some detail about mobile testing.
Yes, absolutely. So for mobile testing, we've all been talking about web application security. So for mobile security testing, we have a mobile security top 10. We have a mobile ASVS, which I'm going to be talking about. Then we have a mobile security guide itself, like where to start off with mobile security projects. Like I have no idea, but I want to test a mobile app. So how to do that? So mobile security testing guide really helps with that. And if you are if you have doubts about any of the projects, any of the if there are things that are still not there, or if you feel that there's something that can be there, I can actually introduce you to the project leaders, which are very much open about discussing on mobile security.
Okay. Another question is from Mr. Soma Harish. He's asking, up to what extent automatic tools will work?
So automated tools will actually help us in fine-tuning our work. Now, how they help us? If we talk about we have to go live within a week, if we have to go live within a day, there are so many organizations which have 72 releases in one day. I know those organizations. Now, if you have those many releases in one day, uh, is it practically possible to do the manual reviews? No. But then automated projects, what they can help us with, finding the flaws, reporting them, and then we can define a timeline. Okay, this is a high bug or critical bug and we have to fix it right away. This is a medium severity bug and we can fix it in a day or two. This is a low severity bug, we should fix it within this week. So we have a defined timeline, we cannot avoid them, but then automation will help us going live at the earliest. And it's important now, and we are talking about, okay, we want our site to be production ready as soon as possible. We are talking about DevOps, we are talking about agile. So it's even more important for a security team to also become agile, to be more inclined towards automation, and it eases our job, to be honest.
Okay. So there's a question from one Mr. Prince Joseph. He's asking, can you give some examples of security testing requirements? What are those non-functional requirements and how can you gauge them?
Okay, so what I'm going to do is, for requirements, I'm going to send you a detailed list which can help you. Okay, these are the non-functional requirements. These are the functional requirements that could be there. Because if I say, okay, these are the only two things that you should be concentrating on, that's not going to justify. So I'm going to give you an exhaustive list of requirements that can help you in mapping it. Even there was one person I was discussing yesterday. They've got a specific requirements to a specific product. But then if you have a generic requirement, you can map it based on our or we can map it based on our own requirement as well. I've done it. Like I have created my own list. Okay, these are the requirements that could be there. These are the requirements that they might be telling me, and I've always been ready in advance. That okay, before even the call gets started, I always have a view. Okay, this might be the project. So I'm going to share the requirements list from where you can download it so that it can help you. Now, especially about.
Yeah, please continue, Vandana.
No. Okay, I'll answer this question. Authorization and authentication testing, what type of test cases are available? So there are so many cases that are available. And all of those cases, you can actually pick it up from the security testing guide, like especially from the authentication perspective, that how can be, okay, especially from the password perspective. Let's take a password example. How strong can be a password? In the login page, how the authentication can be done. If it's a simple form authentication, what are the aspects of it? If it's a password-based password authentication, how this password can play a role. And all those logout functionalities play a really big role. Even at the same time, forgot password functionality, that also plays a role in that. Now, in authorization testing, we check roles, we check many things. Even especially now when we talk about APIs also we are talking about in authentication and authorization. Especially from authorization perspective, we are talking about. So web security testing guide has a really amazing view. And there's another thing that I'm going to be talking about now, which is ASVS, Application Security Verification Standard, which can help you a lot, which has helped me and a lot of the people whom I worked with.
Okay.
So let me share my screen again. Yeah. No, go ahead. If there's any other question, till the time.
I was just going to ask you to continue with your session.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to give it a break so that it should not be like people are sleeping and like, or people are not understanding what I'm trying to say, or I'm going too fast for them. So let me go ahead and do that. All right. Now, we've talked about all of this. Now, how about talking about defensive controls? Now, what are the defensive controls and why are we talking about it? So, defensive controls are like, is there any project which can help in defending our application? Like, is there any web application firewall that could be there as part of open source, or that can give us a bird's eye view or give us good information about our application security posture from the application firewall perspective? So yes, there's a project called Mod Security Core Rule Set, which is a project which is more of a set of generic attack detection rules which we can find it early in the application, or we can say we can put a firewall in front of our application, find those bugs, and those detection rules that we are talking about here, those can be used for finding the vulnerabilities, stopping the DDoS. Now, why should I use OWASP mod security core rule set? Because it's important to understand. It provides protection for insecure web application design. So how it provides a protection from insecure design? Because it can provide a layer of protection for web applications such as WordPress, PHP, or any other type of web applications. At the same time, it can also potentially protect our application from the out of date web application content or component, I would say. If a developer of an application start using mod security core rules set in front of the application, we can actually find the bugs in the application and we can secure our application. It can also help us with the attacks related to operating system. So mod security core rule set, or CRS, I would use CRS. So this can actually protect against attacks that especially against which are developed the exploits on operating system or even on our servers. So it can also help us in protecting against the generalized malicious traffic or DDoS attacks. So some of the threats that servers or the administrators face, or even we see that, yes, the application is vulnerable to DDoS attack. We are flooded with so many requests. So it helps us with that. Another project which is on the defensive line is CSRF Guard. We've seen this vulnerability and it has been removed from top 10, but then it's still, there are so many applications which are still vulnerable to CSRF, which is called site request forgery. So OWASP CSRF Guard is a library that implements a kind of a synchronizer token, and it helps an application or our application against CSRF vulnerability, because all those secure random token can help our application somewhat getting away from the CSRF vulnerability. Now, another important aspect is that how about using these projects and leveraging these projects as part of defensive controls in our application. So on the same lines, there's another project which is beautifully crafted project called proactive controls. So all these proactive controls are specially designed for developers, security researchers, that, okay, now you are developing these things, but how about you know what could go wrong with an application if there's a vulnerability that exists, or what could be a problem with encoding if we don't do the encoding. How about validation, or how about leveraging the libraries which are outdated. So all of these things can be avoided if we start understanding proactive controls. So proactive control project is amazing project. I think we all should go ahead and start using it. So I've worked with few people who have started using it religiously. That okay, I'm starting to work on these projects. How about I learn more about proactive controls? So these are the projects which actually help. Now, okay, sorry. So another thing is, now we've talked about all of the whole structure, but if we don't do the training and awareness at the right time, we would be lagging behind. So training and awareness is again an important aspect. Now, how should we do the training and awareness? So training and awareness can be done with the vulnerable web apps. And OWASP Web Boot is like one of the ancient web application, or one of the application which is like oldest application which we know. When I started working on it, I was using it, and now till date, teams have been updating it, and we are using this application. It's a deliberately vulnerable application, and we can find the common vulnerabilities which can be there in an application, which we can use it. So what else is there? So there's another project which is Security Shepherd, which we can use it as part of our application. Now, why are we using so many vulnerable applications? Every application is unique in itself. Okay, WebGoat is there, which is there for the top vulnerabilities, but then Security Shepherd is in a form of challenges. Like you will see, if you see on the screen, there is a cross mark on a lesson, and then once you complete it, it's a more of a scenario based. So once you complete the challenge, then you will see a tick mark, or you will see, okay, this has been addressed. Now we should go ahead and start working on other vulnerabilities. And the most important aspect is that it provides a good view for a penetration tester who is getting started. Okay, these are the vulnerabilities that could be there in an application. These might not just be the vulnerabilities, but that actually, to get started, it's a good one. Another project, which is an amazing project, and I know the project leaders are good friends of mine, and I've discussed this project with them a lot. And even one of the sessions I was involved was for Dependency Check. So this is one project which gives the real-time use cases, scenarios, or the live sessions, demos, integrations between multiple projects. So DevSlops, it's a more of a real-time teaching experience for you, real-time workshops. So I really like this project, wherein if we have to integrate something with one of the cloud partners, something as part of the pipeline, so it helps just with that. And Pixie's vulnerable API project, which again is from this almost the same team as DevSlop, and it's one project which gives again the good vulnerable API section. So I would highly recommend you knowing about the DevSlop or a Pixie project. So OWASP Shop is probably the most modern web application, vulnerable web application, or sophisticated insecure web application, which can be used as not just for the testing or understanding that, okay, these are the vulnerable components which can be there, or vulnerabilities can be there in application, but it can also be used as a CTF. I've used in a lot of places to use, like this project I've used as a CTF, like capture the flag. And you can set up the whole process. Like you can spin up 10 to 15 instances and give it to the people, and they can start using it. So it's like amazing project. At the same time, another important thing not to forget, which I've been talking about, is top 10 project. Now, what is a top 10 project? It's a list of top 10 vulnerabilities, which most of the people who talk about security knows about it, because there's always saying that people say in application security, if you are in application security, you should know all those top 10 vulnerabilities by heart. So top 10 vulnerabilities is like, these are the vulnerabilities which come into existence by the efforts of security researchers, developers who are working on this project, or by the industry who's actually contributing in giving the data. So it's like a lot of people, a lot of organizations are involved in it, getting the data, and then there's a vote that goes on. Okay, this could be a top vulnerability. There's a huge discussion that goes out. So there's a new one which is set to release in 2021, I would say, not 2000, but 2021 to be precise. Now, another project which I mentioned was ASVS, when I was talking about software security knowledge framework, or there was someone who was saying, can we get a checklist of authentication and authorization, or what are the scenarios that could be possible? So when I was using security testing guide, I was thinking, how about I make a checklist and say, okay, this is done, this is done, this is done, this is done. I actually made a security checklist from that. And then later, I got to know there's ASVS exists. ASVS is Application Security Verification Standard. That has a nice CSV list, a Word document, a PDF, which we can use. And it is actually made up of different maturity levels, from maturity 0 to maturity 3. So now maturity 0 is like a cursory level 0, and the level 3 is like an advanced. So level 1 is for low assurance applications, or applications which are using like not so critical applications. So it is like a penetration testable application. Now level 2 is the application that contains sensitive data, or that may contain sensitive data which require protection, and is the recommendation level for most of the applications. Then comes the level 3. Now level 3 is for the most critical applications, and especially banking apps, all of those apps, and all those applications which do the valuable transactions. Sensitive medical data could be there. So all of those as part of it. Uh, Now, when we say application security verification standard, there are some objectives with which it was there, like the requirements are there in mind. But then, how about mapping it relevant to our own organization, relevant to the severity level of our application? It helps with that. It helps in understanding that if we are deploying a secure software by the use of repeatable and solutions which can help us again and again. This application security verification standard helps us at multiple places. I'm going to come back to it here. We were talking about mobile, right? And I gave information about mobile security testing, and there was someone who asked the question about mobile security testing. So here is a mobile ASVS, which is mobile application security verification around iOS and Android. And at the same time, it helps us in mobile top 10. And we can see the list of top 10 vulnerabilities which are part of top or the top risk which can be there as part of mobile applications. Now, when we've talked about web applications, mobiles, if we forget the privacy risk, that can be a big challenge. So it's important to address all those privacy concerns. So private top 10 privacy risk, just address with that. How about fixing the privacy bugs? So we should be taking into look at, I'm sure there must be a lot of people in the webinar today who must not be knowing about that there are top 10 privacy risks that exist. So what are the risks? What could be the top 10 risks? Like web application vulnerabilities, operator side data leakage, insufficient data breach response, like we are not responding to the data breaches on time, insufficient detection of personal data at loss, like, or we are not talking about that we have personal data and we are securing them properly, non-transparency around policies, terms and conditions, collection of data not required, like we don't need the data but we are still dealing with that, we are still storing it, sharing of data with the third party. It's like one of the big concern around security. Then using the outdated personal data, missing or insufficient session expiration. We are sending data using insecure manners or insecure data transfer. These are some of the common privacy risks which are there. Then there's another project which deals with automated threats, which we tend to forget, especially when we talk about banking and all of these systems. There are automated threats which play a role. So automated threat provides a good list of pointers that, okay, these are the automated threats that needs to be addressed. And those needs to be taken care as early as possible. Now, knowledge management is for the people who are working on ground, not just security people. So here comes the knowledge security framework, which contains application security verification standard, which I talk about, which should be known to all the people. It should be known to security people like us, developers, functional testers, everyone who is working on the project, even program managers. Similarly, security knowledge frameworks. It helps in defining the requirements. So it has a good requirements gathering section. Then it also deals with it. It is complementing very well with application security verification standard. So we can define, okay, this is our application which is maturity level 3 or severity level 3. So on basis of that, we can define. Another important thing is, if a developer has a vulnerability related to Go code and he wants to understand that I'm writing this piece of code, if this will be vulnerable or not, and I want to know about XFC in certain project or Python or Java, how can we do it? All of those things, or authorization flaws or authentication flaws that are there in security knowledge framework. So it has a huge lab work which is there, which can be used around Kubernetes, and I have set it up in my own home lab network. So it helps in guiding the developers, us, in secure application design instead of thinking about security as an artifact. And it is also helpful in providing the threats before a single line of source code is written. So it's an amazing project. And another important project is, or an interesting project, I should say, Snakes and Ladder, which is more of an educational application security awareness game. It's a board game for web applications, wherein the virtuous, if you can see, or especially in India, Asia, we all know that we play this Ludo. Even I remember there was one conference that happened in Kerala, Kokon, wherein there was one company which actually got it to the conference, and they were doing all of this with the dices game. So the virtuous behavior ladders are secure coding practices like OWASP proactive controls. Then at the same time, the vices, snakes, are application security risk. And last but not the least, a complete picture of all of our apps for alerting, monitoring, and logging of those things. So Cornucopia is another card game, which is more of a to give a view around agile DevOps to security people. Okay, this is how agile security works. It's more of a game which we can play right now, even we are online. So it helps amazingly with that. Even I have ordered my card, and I'm going to play with the developer team that I have. So what else can we do? This is the whole framework that I talked about, like starting with requirements gathering till training and awareness. And you can take a picture of this, you can take a good view around it. Okay, this is how the whole framework is built using the open source components, and even including the trainings and other details. The most important thing comes is how to contribute to all these projects so that you can be integral part of the whole thing. We can contribute via code. If we don't want to contribute, or if we cannot contribute via code or features, we can write the test cases, help create the content, help in documentation, blogs. If that's not possible, if there's a project that you really like, how about promoting that? Let people know about, okay, this project exists, suggesting new features around it. Now, all of this can help. So how do we move forward? Now we know how to contribute. So this is the place where you have the whole free content, OWASP.org, and around that you can find the chapters. So every part of the continents, like there are so many continents, so many countries, and OWASP is like hugely located at the distant places. So you can find a chapter near you, and if there's no chapter near you, you can get a chapter near you. You can request it, and you will get the chapter near you. Or you can be a chapter leader, I should say that. So as a community, if you feel that you want to be part of some place, or there's no community around, you can actually set it up. If there's a community around that sets your goal right, that's aligned with your vision, please go ahead and join it. Then you can reach me at all these places. I'm very much available on Twitter. I'm there on LinkedIn. You can reach me over email, and we can have a conversation. You can share the feedback. You can provide me inputs around it. So yes, please do reach me. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we are back with the Q&A session, and there are a couple of questions ready.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Prince Joseph is again asking, is there any direct link to the other security elements, the familiar ones like firewalls, IDS or IPS or threat protection? How does the output here in the Appsec becomes inputs for those?
See, what we can do is we can actually take certain vulnerabilities from the vulnerability testing and can help and see if they can be integrated in SIM. But IDS and IPS, I need to go back and check. Like AMAS, that can be integrated really well with IDS and IPS. The AMAS project, which a lot of people are not aware. So we can take a look at that, and we can actually integrate with IDS, IPS, especially finding the outer layer of our organization. So it can help us with that.
Okay. There's another question from Mr. Akshay KS. Is code of execution a good technique to use?
I would say it depends. It depends what's the need and why do we need to obfuscate. Because it is there. This technology is there to make the source code of the application difficult to read and comprehend. But then it's important to understand that why do we want to obfuscate, from the security side, or from what perspective we want this to happen. Because when we can fix the bug early, so how about let's fix it.
Okay. There's another question from Mr. Soma Harish. What kind of necessary steps should be taken while designing a network for any organization to improve security and organization cannot be vulnerable further?
So to start off, hacking is inevitable, and we all know. And there is no organization which is 100% secure. We all know that. Like there's something new that will come and make us vulnerable. So if you say that it's not possible, I would never say that, because any organization, even they have the best of technology, they've been hacked, and you know it. You can check the facts. But yes, especially when we talk about the new architecture, zero trust architecture, which is in the use, but then we are using bits and pieces of it. We can start designing the zero trust architecture in an organization, even in cloud. That can actually define the network security requirements, and that caters to multiple areas, covering the identities, covering the monitoring, covering the inside of it, like monitoring inside out, outside in. Like outside in we have been doing, but then inside out, all of those things it covers really well.
Okay, I think that, okay. Yeah, there's another question, one more question from Akshay KS. Is digital data breach of documents that are usually Xeroxed has a great concern?
What could go wrong if we are Xeroxing things and it's going somewhere? What could go wrong? If you are scanning or Xeroxing some confidential data, or your documents, or your PAN card, your passport, if it goes to someone else, what could go wrong? Think about it. Especially hacking a printer. That's like a nice thing. And getting to the console is like super easy.
I guess that's the end of the questions. Are there any more questions? Okay. So, Vandana, that was an incredible interaction and a great session. We received a tremendous amount of really exciting insights this evening from you. We are so grateful for your expertise and your valuable suggestions on how to secure our applications and infrastructure through open source tools. And your replies to all the questions were also awesome. So, on behalf of Hac'KP, I extend our sincere thanks to you for being with us today in such a short notice. Thanks to all attendees for your time. If you have any additional queries, you can reach out to Vandana through her LinkedIn and Twitter handles.
Yeah, so, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vandana. We have scheduled our next webinar on 5th of August 2020 at 7 p.m. on a topic Powering and Securing the Digital Enterprise. Mr. Madhav Singh, Assistant VP and Information Security Cloud4C, and Mr. Samuel John Verghese, VP Global Marketing Cloud4C, would be taking the session. See you all again on August 5th. Stay safe and thank you.